Hello there, and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my sewing parlor, where today we are sadly not going to be doing any sewing. I don't have any window treatments to make yet, although I do have a different idea for the sort I want to do in here. But today I wanted to go ahead and update you on the other decor project, or one of the other decor projects I have going on while I'm supposed to be working on the foyer behind you. Yes, that's right, I'm in the middle of the foyer project. I haven't finished my stenciling. I want to do some stenciling on the floor. I want to paint the floor itself. There's a lot still left to be done out there, but it's the kind of thing that I have to pace myself with, because otherwise I will destroy my physical body, because my skeleton has really started to revolt, which is extremely irritating for me and also I assume for you. But I have been allowing myself to get distracted these last few months working on other projects downstairs, mostly just because my kitchen and dining area were simply so hideous that I couldn't live with them as they were any longer. And I do wish to apologize to people who lived here before me. If you're watching, it's not your fault. I highly doubt many of these choices happened after 1974. But anyhow, let me go ahead and show you what I've been up to trying to transform my dining area. And just as a reminder, here was the wallpaper that was going on in this room when I purchased this house last year. And we can see the very lovely 1970s peel and stick tile floors and the brown 70s tile in front of the sad 80s fireplace, the very rustic fireplace, which might be the only original feature left in this room, with the faux styrofoam beams either side of it, which unfortunately are not real. But you can see there is a different treatment or finish going on each wall in this three-walled room. We have the wallpaper and the border, and then painted over that on this last wall. So there was a surprising amount going on in here, and yet none of it to my taste. But the very first change to this room came while we had an electrician out to do a few other things around the house. We had them install this stained glass light fixture here. I also did bring my parents' dining table with me when I moved out here, simply because I know that they are expensive and I needed something to use for the first year that I lived in this house. Although I need to be selling this more mission-style table on Facebook Marketplace soon, because I actually went with something a little smaller for this room in the end. Plus, over the last year, I've decided that instead of going for a more mission-style or arts and crafts period design back here in this room, that I wanted something a little bit more rustic. Mostly because the arts and craft period is slightly too minimalist for me, or I'm not chic enough to really get away with it, let's face it. So here are some of the vibes I'm hoping to cultivate for my dining area, which is more like a breakfast room and less like a formal dining space, just because it is so adjacent to the kitchen, and kitchens were considered such an informal space in the past that this slightly more adjacent room feels much more like a butler's pantry with a table in it, really. So while I desire a grand, formal dining room, that's really not what this space is destined to be. It's just too small for that kind of thing. So while I'll take some Victorian inspiration, I do kind of want to infuse it in almost an earlier style, earlier even than this house was built. My house was built in 1890, but I'm almost looking at some styles that you see quite a lot here in upstate New York. Early American, kind of more rustic, Georgian era design. Trying to find a balance between dark academia Victorian elegance and the more rustic dark witches cottage 18th century sort of a vibe. Trying to kind of fuse these things almost as if it's a Victorian breakfast room, using some of the inherited pieces that they may have added into this newer quote-unquote house from things that the family would have had in the past. If we imagine this was a family home, which of course I am the first of my family to live here, but we're trying to give it an inherited and vintage antique look. So again, trying to find a happy medium between these two ideas, sort of a gothic little woman dining room, a little bit casual, a little bit fancy, somewhere in between. Yes, I am working on the kitchen and the dining room simultaneously, so ignore the fact that it is now kind of blue in there. Anyway, I have 2 coats of this unnamed green color now on the walls. I have started painting the, if we can call this crown molding as well. It's only nailed in very loosely. It's a sham, honestly, but what are you gonna do? Almost as bad as the styrofoam beams, which I did get a little bit of blue paint on the other side, but please do not fear. That is, I can 100% confirm, made of styrofoam. But over on this side, I have my 2 coats on this sad wall, and I have started to paint the same exact color matched again, only in the satin finish, so slightly shinier on this door frame, and then also on the baseboards next to the world's saddest flooring. I am starting to try and dream a little about even just covering this temporarily with black and white laminate while I save up to do marble tile from the door to the front door to the back, because nobody wants to look at this anymore. I mean, I've got paint on it, that was me, but also like I didn't replace sad tiles with other sad tiles, so this is a joint effort of sadness. But I still need to go ahead and paint the window trim this same green color again. It is annoying that I can't just say what the name of the color is. Sorry about that. I'll see if I can get the color code, like mixing specifications, off the lid from the Benjamin Moore can, and then you should be able to replicate it if for some reason you want to know what exact color this is. I would love to take these shutters off, but unfortunately they cut into the trim of the original window to put them on there, which would almost make it look more sad if I took them off. So I might just have to leave them on for now. The perils of what people did to my old house before I got here. You know, what are you gonna do? At least I have put the mirror that was left by the previous owners for me, because it was left by the previous owners for them. So the mirror that apparently must stay in this house is still here. I put my little lamps up here, so the mantle looks a little bit cuter, but we still have a lot of work to do otherwise. And I do think that the lamp at least is starting to look at least a little bit more at home in here now that the walls are green. But once I get the ceiling going, I think this will come together a lot more. I do actually want to get a new dining table, by the way. This is the dining table from my parents' house. My mom gave it to me. As you can see, I'm in the middle of decorating. I need to put a lot of things away. I found these brass bugs at Home Goods. What am I gonna do, not get those? Anyway, I'm in the middle of lots of stuff, so this is an absolute wreck in here. But I would like a round dining table that like has leaves so I can make it a 6 or 8 seater if I need to, but I really rarely need to. Most days it's just me, so I don't need a table for 6 for most, you know, for me. This is going to be the dining room space, but really it's gonna be kind of more of like a breakfast room is kind of the idea. So it's gonna be a little bit more rustic in here. This is a slightly arts and crafts period style table, which is fine in here, but I think I wanna go for something a little bit more rustic and definitely something round. So I'm keeping an eye on Facebook Marketplace. I haven't found anything that's I've absolutely fallen in love with, which is good because I also have no way to get it here because I do not own a truck and it would be troublesome to rent one by myself because of reasons. So we'll see. I need to figure that out. I also want to put a hutch here, or a break front there as well. There are actually 3 outlets just on this wall here, and like to put a hutch here would probably cover at least one of them, but I don't need 3 outlets. There's more outlets in the dining room than there is in the kitchen, so that should be fine. There is this large wall, which is what I'm standing against to talk to you for most of this. And on the other side of this is the living room with the mural situation, the Ivan Earl room, as it were. And this obviously had a lot going on textures-wise. This is actually covered completely in 1970s paneling, and then someone put wallpaper over the 70s paneling, and that's why it looks smoother down here. It's not actually smoother. It's just wallpaper over paneling, and that paneling is just resting against the walls behind. Who knows what the walls look like? Haven't seen them. But because it all has to come out eventually anyway, I decided to just paint it. On top of that wall, they put the like Apple wallpaper border that used to be in here in the middle of that wall, and then below that like fill wallpaper. And they wallpapered right over the paneling. You can kind of see where the lines of the paneling can be sort of shadowed through the wallpaper that's there. And then now, of course, I've painted over all of that. That's because eventually this room and the kitchen nearby are gonna need to be like taken to the studs when I redo all of this, because it's just been a mess. No one's done a proper renovation ever. Obviously in the 70s, they were doing whatever with the paneling and the absolutely atrocious flooring choices. And so it all just needs to be completely reconfigured and redone back here eventually, which is going to be an extremely expensive renovation and something I cannot afford to do for several years, probably half a dozen years. So I need to make this place livable in the meantime. The first thing I ever did in this house, honestly, was hung up this light in this room. It's not actually perfect stylistically with the inspirations I've been pulling for this room, but we're gonna obviously incorporate it because it's just gorgeous. It is a faux Tiffany, as previously established. Anyway, speaking of the light, I'm working on the ceiling today. As you can see, I have painted it one coat of this blue shade. This blue shade, again, does not have a name because I mixed it using the random paints I had left over. So this is mixed up with all the samples and stuff that I had already in my supply closet, as it were. And a couple of cups of this stuff mixed in just so that everything has the same, I don't know, grayish, gloomy undertone. But today I want to go ahead and start working on the design for the ceiling in here. This is going to be otherwise color drenched. The trim behind us at the windows, the trim over there, everything else, the baseboards, it's all the same tone of green. But the ceiling here is going to actually have a medallion in the center that is this blue. And I'm going to create that medallion by drawing semicircles or kind of scallops around the room. And I'll show you the plan. As you can imagine, it's very important to make sure you have a plan drawn out, something very, tested, tried, true, like a sticky note with a little sketch on it. So if you're looking at this is what the ceiling in this room looks like. This is where my fireplace is. It's brick. And there's a little bit of wall either side of that. I'm just going to kind of ignore this triangle of space. But basically what I'm going to do is create a sort of medallion in the center with maybe some spider webbing, remains to be seen, by using semicircles. So I'm going to do a semicircle in each corner, and then I will do a circle on the short wall in between those two things, or a half circle rather, and then 2 half circles along each of the long walls. I'm going to go ahead and just measure the wall, these walls. I'm going to measure this wall here, separate that into 3, and I will do my 90-degree quarter circle pieces in the corners first. Then I will fill in with the last semicircle along the short wall. Then I will find the distance, the equidistance between these 2 corner pieces, and do the other scallops in the center there, leaving us with a rather spiderwebby looking medallion in the center, if we could call something that large a medallion. But hopefully it will look a little bit like this, only better, because instead of a sketch on a sticky note, it will be reality. So I'm going to go ahead and take the measuring tape, draw on the ceiling with a Sharpie, that's right, and figure out my plan so I can start doing the first coat here. It seems silly to do another full coat of the blue when I'm only going to be doing it in the center. So, all right, you can see I have some Sharpie marks on the ceiling here. I have drawn out my giant scallops that will create more of a spiderwebby-ish medallion-ish design on the ceiling. Obviously, if I wanted it to be more of a centralized medallion, I would make these larger. But these are about, I think it was 3 feet semicircle here. So what I did to do that was, you could very easily do this with like a pencil or a pen and a piece of twine or string, and just in the center of the circle, which in this case would be the corner, just put a nail there or a screw with a piece of string and then use that to draw your semicircles. What I did, because I didn't have any string right at hand, was I used these giant pieces of flat cardboard that came, I don't even remember what this came with, some sort of IKEA packaging probably, and created templates for myself out of this piece of cardboard. And then I held those templates up onto the ceiling and traced around the edge with a Sharpie so that I could get my design up here on the ceiling. Now again, I'm not trying to make this perfect, obviously. I kind of want this to have a hand-painted DIY feel, something that if this house was owned by the Bennetts in 1780, which wasn't here, maybe it was sketched up by some of the daughters on the weekend, kind of thing, like a Little Women-ish touch, But now that I've drawn my semicircles onto the ceiling, before I can paint the first coat of green onto the outside edge scalloped border here, I actually need to go for a walk, probably then eat dinner, probably then run to the grocery store, and then maybe I can start that tonight. But we'll see after all of that where I'm at. All right, I have painted a design onto the ceiling here in the dining room, or at least the initial phase of a design. And I have a little bit more work to do on this naturally in the future. And the really good news is I have arranged to pick up a new dining table and chairs set for in here off of a seller on Facebook Marketplace. So hopefully that will all come together, and I'm not jinxing it right now, knock on wood, because I'm really excited about it. So hopefully the next time you see this dining room, it will be even cuter, and I will update you again in the future. Then in late September, my brother came to visit. We went on a nice long hike down in the Catskills, and then he helped me to go pick up the new table. Well, new to me. And as we can see, the table is still under some inspection from the curious kittens, even though honestly Sophia matches this table quite well, so they seem like kindred spirits. Oh, excellent work, Fee, excellent work. And over here, I will show you just what these chairs look like. They're sort of a Windsor style chair, a little bit of an earlier style for this room because of course my house is from 1890 and this style of chair is much older than that. However, I wanted this room to feel a little bit more rustic, a little bit more inherited, a little bit forgotten by time, more like sitting in an old history museum. So these are what the chairs look like. They're again quite distressed. I think they came that way, and then in addition, they're distressed by having been owned by a family once again. I do kind of like, as a clumsy person, that this furniture has already been banged up because I don't have to worry about being the one who does it. Hello, Fifi. Now this sideboard, however, is a modern piece of furniture. I do apologize for that. The reason being that I needed something quite narrow and that I needed to be able to put it together here as opposed to having a truck to go pick things up. I actually had to rent a U-Haul truck while my brother was in town to go and pick up the dining table and chairs here. But this I had delivered straight to the house from Wayfair. This is a Wayfair cabinet. Seems to be holding up okay so far. It didn't take too much to put it together. And as much as I would have liked to buy a vintage or antique sideboard, nothing really fit the dimensions, like the length and then the narrowness that I was looking for. And of course, again, I would have needed a truck to go and pick things up. So for me, for right now, a modern sideboard will have to do. I am planning on building a large plate rack to go above that, and I do have the lumber sitting aside for that. I went ahead for the pre-prime for most of it, but we'll see. So hopefully I can put together my plate rack to hang on top of this as well. But first things first, painting in that extra little detail here on the ceiling. Excuse me, young lady. Are you playing with that pencil sharpener? I don't think that's for you. You're a very pretty lady. I did go ahead and sketch on this sort of piping on the inside of the medallion. I measured 2 inches out from the original scallop line, and I drew out 2 inches from that as well. Even just drawing the lines with pencil and my ruler onto the ceiling was quite painful, of course, working above my head like this, and then painting it in, trying not to go outside my lines. I really did not enjoy hand painting this while craning my neck. But luckily, I really do like how this came out, and of course I do have color change bulbs in this lamp in here so I can change the vibe at a moment's notice. I think this design on the ceiling is not too formal for this rather casual dining space back here. Of course, casual by my standards still involves a candelabra, and of course still retains a subtle nod to spiderwebs as the inspiration. I was also able to find this vintage wool tapestry, kind of a verdure or bird tapestry, out and about while antiquing in September, and I was just about able to enjoy a couple of meals in this room before I decided to go ahead and start tearing it back apart. I don't know if I've shown you this floor recently, but this again is the floor situation for the, I guess, laundry room, kitchen, and dining room. This is a 1970s laminate tile, where obviously sections pulled up over the years, and so people went to Home Depot, grabbed a box of faux slate, and put those in and kind of just filled that in. So this is the patchwork floor that we're left with. Underneath this, there is a probably at least an inch, if not 5/8 of an inch, thick piece of plywood. That plywood I was hoping was just laid onto the other laminate that's below this. It is not, it's actually nailed in with like giant nails that they were using back in the 70s. So we have this laminate layer, then we have the wood layer. Underneath that is the green like sheet laminate, and then below that is just like the wood floorboards that are not like the subfloor, I guess. They're not like fancy wood, it's just the wood between us and the basement, honestly. So what's gonna happen here is, I think that when my parents come out to visit me in November, I'm going to enlist their help, and I'm going to invest $1,000 in this kitchen for the meantime, and I'm going to replace this laminate with laminate wood flooring in a darker shade, because even like laminate wood floor is not the best, obviously, especially in this old house. You would like to do a real floor of some kind, real wood, real tile, real stone, something. And down the line I will. It's just the cost per square foot of that is not in the cards right now, but for $1,000, I could not have to look at this for the next 5 or 6 years. And that's an investment I think is worth making, because my kitchen and dining, my whole house, honestly, half of my house down here is going to feel so much cleaner and nicer if we didn't have this. And thus, it is now November, and therefore my parents are here visiting and helping me to pull up the old floor and put down the new luxury vinyl floorboards. Of course, how luxurious is it when it's under $4 a square foot? I'll tell you in the future, but it's going to be better than this old stuff, which, as you can see, my mom is prying up off the floor here. She and I have been chiseling the old floor up and away while my dad figures out how to puzzle the new floor down. And the first few boards are in, and I can confirm it's going to look a whole lot better than this. But at least the ceiling in here is a little bit more fun. So that is where I am at with the dining room right now. It only has 3 walls, so is it really a room? It's kind of one big room with the kitchen, but with a fireplace in the middle of it, which really blocks the potential layout for both of these things. One day, again, I want to kind of redo the entire back of the house, but that is not today. So this is going to get me through to that point where I can actually have a large renovation and like renovate my kitchen properly and things like that. And I do hope to have the temporary flooring solution installed by the end of next week. So fingers crossed for me that I can get my cheap sad laminate in, because even that is going to be better than what I've currently got. Anyhow, thank you as always for watching today, and a huge thank you to my patrons who make my work and these videos and all of this renovation possible. And as always, I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, crafting, and decorating real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye.